ჩემთვის ეს მართლა ყველაზე უცნაური და საინტერესო მოდერაცია. ეთნა მისი როგორც ამოდი ეს არის ყველაზე უცნაური და სახალისო მოდერაცია მე მგონი ჩემი მთელი გამოცდილების განმავლობაში რაც პირველის ფონდში მქონია. იმიტომ რომ მე მქონდა საშუალება გუშინ შევხვედროდი ლეპასთან მართლა ბახტოვანებული ვარ ამ ადამიანის უსაზღვრო თავისუფლების სულით. ეს ცოტა ხანში თქვენ ნახავთ რომ ეს არ არის გადაჭარბებული შეფასება ჩემი მხრიდან. ამ ორი დღის მანძილზე ვისწავლეთ ძალიან ბევრი რამე ამ ადამიანისგან უკვე და ამისათვის პირველში მადლობა დაგაგვხადო მას. ჩვენ მართლა გვაქვს პატივი, რომ დღეს ვუმასპინძლოთ ადამიანს, რომელიც არის ერთ-ერთი ფუძემდებელი იუგოსლავიის ფემინისტური მოძრაობისა. 1978 წლიდან ეს ადამიანი ამ მოძრაობის აქტიური წევრი არის. ის არის 80-იანი წლების ასევე ერთ-ერთი ლიდერი, ფემინისტი და ლესბი და გეი მოძრაობის ერთ-ერთი სულისჩამდგმელი და მონაწილე. გარდა ამისა, ჩემი აღფრთოვანება, რამაც გამოიწვია, არის ის, რომ ეს მძიმე პერიოდი, რაც ყოფილი იუგოსლავიის ქვეყნება გამოიარეს და რის შესახებაც ჩვენ ვიცით, აი ამ პერიოდშიც კი ლეპა ახერხებდა იმას, რაც შემთხვევით პირადად ძალიან რთული და ძალიან საპასუხისმგებლო საქმიანობა. ანუ 90-იან წლებში უკვე, ანუ 1991 წელს, როცა იუგოსლავიაში ეს ომი დაიწყო, ის სათავეში ჩაუდგა ისეთ მოძრაობას, რომელსაც ერქვა ქალების შავებში, ეს იყვნენ ქალები, რომლებიც ყოველ ოთხშაბათს დუმა რეაქციას აწყობდნენ თავის წინააღმდეგ და ამით აპროტესტებდნენ ტოტალიტარულ რეჟიმს. ის იყო ანტინაციონალისტი და არის ანტინაციონალისტი და ანტიმილიტარისტი და მოკლედ ბევრი რომ აღარ გავაგრძელო, ეს მთელი სულისკვეთება, ესე ვთქვათ, სულ ცოტა ხანში, რამდენიმე წუთში მე დარწმუნებული ვარ, რომ თქვენს გადმოვედებათ. ესე იგი, მისი ლექსის დასრულების შემდეგ ჩვენ გვექნება დისკუსია. ხოლო დისკუსიის შემდეგ კი ყველა თქვენთაგანი, ესე იგი, ყველა თქვენთაგანს შეუძლია რომ შემოგვიერთდეს არაფორმალურ, ასე ვთქვათ, შეხვედრაში, რომელიც იქნება ერთ-ერთ კაფეში, ამას მოგვიანებით გეტყვით, ვისაც სურვილი გაქვთ, მოკლედ შემოგვიერთდით. მოკლედ ეს არის ჩვენი გეგმა, ახლა კი ლეპას ვთხოვ, რომ დაიწყოს თავისი პრეზენტაცია.
I had one.
Make sure that it's turned.
I had wonderful yesterday evening and today with a feminist from your town. So I learned a lot. And first I want to welcome everybody and to say I'm really happy to be among activists because I'm activist and so I feel at home. And please, you can ask questions anytime. It's really not an issue. You can say whatever. Because the main thing I want to try to show a little bit is where I come from. And I'm a long-term feminist activist and lesbian activist, and I'm very happy lesbian. I like to say that because it's in our countries it's not so often. So I will try to give some information so that we can come up to the nowadays and talk what happened in your country. So to discuss a little bit and see how do you feel about your activism life and wherever you are. So let's see. This is just like to begin. I wanted to show you that there were three political systems where I was active. And so the first one was that I started my activism in Yugoslavia. It was state socialism. And we had already at that time feminist groups and feminist activism, and also starting to organize lesbians. So this was just like to begin with. And you don't have to read all this, but what I have written here is, in blue are gay groups, you see, and in other are feminists. So I just wanted to show you that in these 80s practically, in Yugoslavia, in the country Yugoslavia, in state socialism, we already had feminist groups and gay and lesbian groups, starting only. And especially, you see, first gay group in Slovenia. Slovenia is northern of Yugoslavia and is later on the first one to be in Europe, so they started first, which was very important for all of us. We got inspiration from them. And then there was Slovenia again, and then a lesbian group, and then a lesbian group, because, you know, it was also important in that time. We had feminist activism. You see, in 1978 was the first International Feminist Conference in Belgrade. That's the first year here. That's from when I count my feminist years. Because I was a student and there was lots of feminists came from different countries, and I was so impressed because they took seriously women. And I thought, you know, I will do some research in my life and I will be a PhD, I don't know in what, in chemistry or something. And women activism will be also parallel. But then I came there and I was so impressed with with passion and seriousness that the feminists took our own lives, and that really was a changing point for me. And then I realized that this is the year and the date I want to count my feminist years, because I took myself seriously as a woman at that time, a young student. And then we made the first feminist group after that, and then we had the feminist networking between the towns. And in 90, is last year, some of us made the first group. It was activist group, feminist, radical feminists, really, who the group to work on violence against women, because we thought it's enough. We have been talking for 10 years, discussing, and had different panels and discussion groups, but now we have to do something serious. Not serious, everything was serious, something concrete for women who are not in discussion groups, but who are somewhere out there and live violence, and we don't even reach them. So then we found a very feminist group, which was SOS Hotline for Women Victims of Violence, and also feminists in other two towns in Yugoslavia made of the same group, so we were part of the networking. So this is the beginning, just to give you some ideas, that the feminist movement and the gay and lesbian movement has started already in socialist Yugoslavia. That's important to understand also today where I come from. And then in 91, the war broke. The war broke down in my country, and it really changed my life completely. Because it was totally sudden, and I didn't expect it, and we didn't expect it, and we couldn't imagine that there will be a war in Europe. And so I just wanted you to know some, I don't know how come this is a little bit up like this, but it was 125 killed. For us it's a lot. Of course, one is too much. I was just giving you some data so that you know, at that time Yugoslavia had 12 million inhabitants. The war lasted from 91 to 99, there were 125 killed altogether, counted everybody. 2 million displaced, most of them never came back. And many thousand women sexually abused in the wartime, so rape in war became an issue finally. And the country was divided in 7 states, doesn't matter, but 7 states. So this is just to understand that just when we sort of thought, the civil society was just starting to open up after the breakup of the Berlin Wall in '89, and also here in the '90s, the whole Eastern Europe was starting to make some changes, and also but then we were stopped by the war completely. And so then I found myself in a country which was totalitarian. We called it a fascist state, our own Serbian state. We, meaning radical feminists, and as you said, we formed at the very beginning of Life Against War, which is a very radical feminist organization against our own regime. That was the main idea. We were standing outside in the Place de la République against our own regime. And in these years of 90 to 2000, I had parallel worlds, because one way I was anti-war oriented and I was standing outside against the regime. Second, I continued to work on the SS hotline for women who survive male violence, but we opened and enlarged this center for women who survive war and rape in war. So we made a big center called the Autonomous Women's Center Against Sexual Violence. And I particularly then was trained to work with women who survive rape in war and sexual violence as a counselor. But then I realized you don't have these words, so I don't know, psychotherapist, counselor, or psychologist, one of these words would fit in your mind. And so that was the second line, and then the third line was I was a lesbian, and I was falling in love and having all these complicated love stories at the same time. So it was really not easy. But I want to read you something which I wrote at that time, which is and so I just wanted to sort of to have some idea about that time. It was in order to understand how to put together, for me being a lesbian and working with women victims of war and being an anti-war activist, I started to write a text to sort of pull myself together, which I named Notes of a Feminist Lesbian During the Wartime. And I will read you 3 paragraphs just to have some idea. Many evenings after, so it's my own, right? Many evenings after the hard work of counseling women survivors of war and violence in the Autonomous Women's Center, I would walk home, sometimes crying, and then dropping by to see the Center for Anti-War Action for an update on latest news on the war front. Women activists were working until late at night there, with great passion and dedication. But no, not about lesbians now. Let's not spoil the cause. It was something that was unsaid among us. At the same time, in our feminist group, every time we tried to talk about war, Activists reacted differently, and it seemed that everything separated us: nationalism and war, or pacifism. Each theme was so crucial to our individual feelings. Was I Serbian only because I had a Serbian name? Was I still Yugoslav, as I used to identify before? And now that Yugoslavia had fallen apart, Yugoslavs were now considered traitors. I would write solidarity letters to unknown women in Sarajevo, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, who lived under siege, thinking whether one day she would be embarrassed if she saw the lesbian who wrote her letters in front of her door. Would she be disappointed with me? Would she regret that she ever received words of friendship from a lesbian? Many times this worry would seize me so strongly that I would shudder. Why was it always so difficult to say that some humanitarian aid came from lesbians? Some said it was not important, but from what heteronormative hypothesis this comes from? I felt split. In each context, I could show only one side of my face, and the rest of me was unwanted or dangerous. Only in my flat, in my room, I felt at ease. And still, I remember I was in chaos in that same room. At times, I would be making love to a woman, and the transistor radio would announce the latest news from the front line. The only news to listen to about the war were broadcasted from Prague or London or Paris. I would be in bed and not know what I should do. Should I get up from the warm bed, turn off the radio, and continue our pleasure? I am a lesbian, I'm a Serbian name. How can I turn off the radio? Human beings, my neighbors, are being slaughtered in my name, and I must know about that. If I do not turn off the radio, there is no more lovemaking today, only my deep sadness at the terrible news for Bosnia and Herzegovina. I would light another cigarette in bed and make another coffee for both of us. Do I show respect to the dead by not turning off the radio? Is lesbian lawmaking at that very moment inappropriate? And why? I was torn by these feelings, these contradictions. My body was hurting all over. I'm sure that some of the women who love women have different kinds of dilemmas in different situations, not only war. So it was important for me also to read this because of the resonance that other women who love women can have in different situations. We are always torn to think, because we terrorized that it is a shame. Loving women is shameful, therefore it's not easy to live with this fact when we are not a strong movement and when we have not lots of freedom that, for example, I have now. So now I can come to you and be a happy lesbian, but I also remember where do I come from, and I know that in many countries the situation is similar or not easy or even worse. I also want just to say that in that time, because the term lesbian is so contaminated with negative feelings, it was difficult for me to even say that I'm a lesbian working with women victims of war. Because victims of war is ethically a category. Victims of war is ethically like a high category of moral purity. You can only just say, yes, I understand that women are war, victims of war. But on the other hand, lesbian is a category ethically which is like the dirtiest of all of them. So I would have a feeling that if I would put in one sentence the word lesbian and war victims, as if this word lesbian will make a shadow to the victims of war, as if this energy of how dirty is the word lesbian for me would dirty the concept of women of war victims. That's how difficult it is for me. So that's why we need to go be together and talk about this, to breathe and to get out of this interest dirtiness, because we are not. So that's about this time, which was difficult time of war, and so we can move on. Just go to the next one. Yeah.
Just click on the screen.
That works. Okay. So this is really another one from this time. I'm just writing what I already told you, that at that time we were active and in Women in Black. Also we made women's studies in that time, and Labris was a lesbian organization in which we also started. I was a co-founder of all of them, but so, okay. And I just gave you the photo. We had, as Women in Black, every year made Women's Solidarity Against War international conference. And here we were singing to remember our active women friends and people in Bosnia and Herzegovina, because they were in wartime, and we thought if we sing this song that maybe they will hear that we care about them, though the borders were closed and they were in the wartime. And then we can pass now after the 2000, the war was over, and then many groups were formed. So feminist groups and also lesbian and gay in Serbia now. Yugoslavia is divided, and now we have Serbia. And I show you just one photo. This is one lesbian feminist action that we made. We just got together from different places because we thought that there are lesbians also who are, usually in every country there are lesbians who are mainstreaming and working that the laws should be put right and that the institutions should work right in the state, and there are lesbian activists who are more on the streets, and so these are us, and this is me also somewhere there, like a football player. Even though I am not much, but. And this is, I wrote you just to, you also don't have to read this, but just to know that, that this is after 2000. We have different gay and lesbian groups, but what's important about these groups is that there are lesbian groups. The lesbian groups, all of them started from the feminist movement. So for us, it's very important for feminists that we all the time think about all different kinds of discriminations that the lesbians are submitted to, depending who they are. So, for example, Roma women, you also have Roma women. There are lots of Roma women's groups, but we have made some efforts to support Roma later. Some of them don't call them Roma lesbians, but Roma who love women who love women, because they're in especially difficult situations. Also, there is this group, gay with disabilities. It's one gay guy who is in a wheelchair, in very intense disability himself. And he founded this organization to support also gay men and lesbians, but mainly gay men that he can reach with disabilities. And then also some of them are from different towns, and some of them is a film festival, as you know. So there are different kind of activities now that we have. This is all what is also happening now. And okay, so now I want to give you a history of the Pride Belgrade, because this is how we can understand better what's the relationship between a movement, lesbian gay movement, and state and the church, because that's also your issue and it's our issue. So I wanted to tell you this story, and I will show you some clips, but just first to sort of make a list. You know, in 2000 we changed the government, and so we had at that time lesbian group Labris, and we were there, and also some other gay guys, and we thought, now that we have democratic society, let's make a pride parade. It was far too early, and we didn't even know which country we live in, because we announced for the 201 to be on, I mean, we were 40, maximum 40, maybe 35, to come there, and they came in 800, and it was really very bad. So I will show you that. But before I show you, I'll just give you so it was lots of violence, and we were traumatized. So we didn't really think of doing anything for years afterwards. And then in 2009, a new group of young lesbians and gay came, and they said, okay, we want to make a pride parade, but we realized that you cannot make a pride parade unless you collaborate with the state, because you have to ask the state to bring the policemen. And in 2009, they banned it. They say, no, we don't want to do that. And of course they banned it like the last day. We were already shaking, you know, and having workshops about fear and what are we going to do and how it's going to be, and I was rehearsing what I'm going to say on the street, and then, you know, a day before they said no, we are not going to bring the police, so it was banned. And then in 2010, it was still a so-called democratic government then. The democratic government, pressed by the Europe, they said, okay, we will make the parade. And afterwards we realized, why did they make this decision? One is because they were so angry on the opposition, and the opposition was very nationalist, and they had arguments, which we did not know at that time, but afterwards. So the opposition said, if you bring gays, you know, these horrible gay guys on the street, we will bring men to beat them up. And then the Democratic Party said, we will bring policemen to defend them from them. So you see what happened. They brought 4,000 policemen because the nationalist parties, they brought, I mean, we did not know at the beginning that they were the ones who brought. They brought 4,000 men to beat us up, but we were all protected, so they really didn't beat us up. They made chaos in the town. They were, you will see the little link. They were breaking the windows and, you know, just destroying the town. So then afterwards, the government said, no. Next year they banned, you know, the gay and lesbian group said we want to do a gay parade, and they said no, we are not bringing the police to protect you. So you see, these years, that means that the state said no, we do not want. And then in this year, 2014, there was a change in the government. So the Democrats lost, and the so-called, at that time, so the previous opposition won, which is made up of three nationalist parties, extreme nationalist parties. So these are the parties that ran the war in the previous decade. Can you imagine who I had to deal now? So the extreme nationalists, and they also have their connection to the church, because nationalists and the church are connected. So until the last day, they didn't tell us what they're going. Is the answer now? Yes, that's always like that. You know, the gay and lesbian group, they ask, we want to pray, and then they say, we still didn't decide. And the last day they said, yes, of course. We said, we are Democrats, the nationalists. And we came out, and there was no violent men. So this was a good news or bad news, because that means that they are controlling each and every one. So-called hooligan. You see, the extreme nationalist parties are controlling in total everyone of them. So it's very important knowledge for us, because first, you know, at the beginning we maybe think, you know, these are football, you know, because they're mostly from football gang, you know, football fans and all these young men, you know, that they came on their own or they hate us. Nothing of that. Not one came, not one single incident on that day happened. So I prepared you. From these three little clips so that you have some visual. It's important.
It's fine. This is the first one?
It's not the first one. There's this right now, yes. Okay, so this Okay, so this is 2001. You know, this is an activist in red. She was so traumatized she never went to the street to make again. But you see, there was no policeman. That was 2001. And we never even gathered as a group. It was, look, they're hitting this guy because he looked different. He had red, yellow hair, and he lives in Holland. He survived fine. He's really a great guy. He was on a press conference 2 days later. And some men and then came, policemen, few of them. These are the activists who are helping this gay guy. Look at this. So now they're hitting each other. It was a total mess. There were about, this is some feminists who are helping him, my friends. There were about 40 people injured, but really this is the first part when they were hitting us, and then there comes the second part because they didn't want to stop hitting. You know, they came to be violent, so we all escaped. You know, and then they started running, look, through the street and screaming, "Death to faggots! Death to faggots! Death to faggots!" This is still the first part, and then the second part they just go down the street. Okay, this one is maybe she's asking people about this, and this is one of the lesbian activists who was saying what happened. Where did you just go? So now this is the second part. They are running through the main street, and lots of police came. Now they're fighting the police because there was nobody from us anymore. They made it look like a street war, you know.
What is this?
And it's just like, not really, it's those.
Rubber.
Yeah. But you know, this is, that's practice. I mean, he doesn't know it. Just a little bit to see this atmosphere, because of course this was a traumatic place. You know, so we all then saw it on the. There was no activists in this part because we all already gone. We were so afraid, of course. So this was between the policeman and these violent men. It's in the main street. You know, the street which is called Marshal Titus. It's like a principal street. And this is some policemen. There were about 45 men injured, and some of them were, but really they were let go. 45, but of these 45, like there was 2 lesbians who were a little bit injured, like 3. And that's about more or less. And this is the member of the Orthodox Church who was there with them. We found later on, and he was supporting them on the ground. And he was saying, of course, I'm not against violence, but this is unacceptable. So that's
the same.
yeah, it's unacceptable. We don't want him to look at it.
So how do I go to the next one?
So that's this is the 2001, just to give you this idea. Okay, so then we'll see.
You want this one?
Yes. So this is a shorter one. This is 2010, when there were 4,000 policemen. So they were practically in the empty streets, you know. This is like, and look at this, there's 2 people there. Yeah, this is about, I don't know, less than, but look at this. We had to be surrounded by 4,000 policemen around.
So it's 2010.
You know, they didn't even let people who live there to come in. They had to show plus IDs. It was really, and these were outside, you know. And now they start to fight between each other, like previously. They love to be the men against men. 8,000 men on the streets fighting. And we were all then already at home, and you know we had to go fast. I mean, we only had 1 hour for our event because the police said. And this was the Democratic Party headquarters, so there were some political interests there. It's all like that, you know.
Are they stones?
Stones are from the ground, you know, that's it. It's just this guy, okay. And then
Only 14.
now the 14. That's the one where there is no violence. It was interesting news. There was more violence because people were really fear what will happen that nobody knew. It started in front of the ministry, Ministry of Serbia building. And then they walked through the main streets to the mayor, Belgrade mayor house. With lots of supporters, lots of feminists and people from friends.
How many people were there?
Like big number for us. It's a big number. So that's about it. Yeah, and also one more thing. It was very important because this year, 2014, there were one minister, a second minister, and a mayor. So this is a huge change from before, that there were three representatives of the government in this pride. Yes. That because before, of course, only activists, nobody was there. So that was the main thing. Okay, that's it. Thanks.
You want to?
I don't know, do you want maybe to say something before I continue? Because people maybe have some ideas now and then we can continue.
I have lots of questions.
Because, you know,
So,
so emotional.
So do you want to stop here? And yeah, let's take questions then from the audience. I suppose nobody really needs translation here because they don't see headphones. So would you like to continue in English or Georgian? So
Let's continue in English.
nobody, I have a translation in English.
okay. I'll give since Georgian is our official language, so yes, I'm speaking Georgian. მოგეთ თუ კითხები გაქვთ ან კომენტარები, მე მგონი არ ხარ შესაძლებას გავაკეთებ პრეზენტაციაში და ხო ხელი აწიოთ, მაგრამ მოდი მანამ სანამ ამას გავაკეთებთ, მე ვხედავ თქვენს ხალხს. არის რაღაცა ინფორმაცია, რაც მე დასაწყისში მინდოდა მეთქვა, მაგრამ რა თქმა უნდა, ჩემი ჯგუფის პროფესიონალი რომ ასეთ მნიშვნელოვანი საკითხი გამოტოვე. მე რაც მინდოდა მეთქვა იყო ის, რომ რადგან ჩვენ ახლა Heinrich Boell Foundation office-ში ვიმყოფებით, აუცილებლად უნდა გავუსვათ ხაზი იმ ფაქტს, რომ ლეპას მიღებული აქვს 2013 წელს ანატლაინის ჯილდო და ბიოლის ფონდის ვებგვერდზე მართლა ძალიან კარგი პორტრეტია ლეპასი. მე პირადად ეს პორტრეტი რომ წავიკითხე, იყო მართლა საოცარი გზნობა დამეუფლა, იმიტომ რომ მთელი გზნობით არის დაწერილი, მთელი მისი ბიოგრაფია არის ძალიან კარგად გადმოცემული და ყველას გირჩევთ რომ ეს ნახოთ. ამას გარდა ყველა ხედავთ ორგვერდიან სტატიას და ამას და კიდევ უნდა იყოს ორი სხვა დოკუმენტი, სხვა აიგით მაგიდაზე და ყველას გირჩევთ რომ ეს ტექსტები წაიკითხოთ. იმიტომ რომ მე გუშინ წავიკითხე ეს ტექსტები და ამ შაბეშლებიდან მოკლედ ვერ გამოსულა. აი ეს მინდოდა მეთქვა მე ის დასაწყისში უნდა მეთქვა მოკლედ ამისთვის ბოდის ვიხდი რომ ახლა მომიხდა. ახლა მოდი მაშინ კითხვებზე და კომენტარებზე გადავიდეთ, გხავთ თქვენ ხელი აწევთ.
Hi, thank you very much for the story, first of all.
So do we need to translate that?
I know.
You speak.
Okay, first of all, thank you very much for the story, and for me, what my interest of coming here was well, I'm recently exploring how the social idea can change over time, and the one I see is that it takes a long time, really. That's the numbers with the 25 years in the title was a big thing for me. My question is, you talk a lot about how government was feeling about your movement and rights that you organized. But what was the social acceptance level before the first Pride, right after the first Pride, and during the last Pride?
Კიდევ სასწრაფოდ კითხები in English or Georgian, doesn't matter. Okay, seems like we don't okay, Anna has the question and the next one will come down.
Is this working?
I think yes.
Sorry. Okay, I have two questions. Maybe the first one is just like I want to find out the details of what happened this year. Because you were talking about last year, but I'd like to know if there's anything that took place this year as well in terms of May 17th. And I also want to ask that you said there's people from the government last year that were present at the gay pride. And these were members of the ultra-nationalist government you were talking about. Is that the case? mean, this is weird.
Yeah.
And it's kind of encouraging.
Yeah.
That's one. And the second question is, that's pertaining to our project that's just recently started in January. It's EU funded, and it's called, like Antuna said in the beginning of the event, it's called the LGBT Solidarity Network in Armenia and Georgia. So my question is there, or have you had any specific experience in identifying intersex individuals? And is there an intersex community in the area that you work in? Because our project includes that component, but in Georgia it is almost impossible to identify individuals, or especially an intersex community. And is there any type of approach that you can recommend for us to pursue in order to identify these individuals and reach out to them, to include them in our project? And thank you very much, and it's an honor for me to meet you.
Thank you, Anna, for you had 3 questions. Now next will be Hamna.
Thank you very much, Lepa, for this wonderful talk. It was a real pleasure listening to you. And while listening to your presentation, there were just 2 questions that came to my mind. My first question relates to the very first question that was asked to you. From the very beginning of your activism up until now, in what ways have you seen the transformation of the society in Serbia, and what role has your activism played in this transformation, and what would you suggest as important means to achieve social change in regard to the protection of the rights of LGBT and women? My other question was, well, thanks a lot for sharing so much of personal stories, and if I can also ask you a personal question, and if you could provide me with an answer, I would really appreciate. You were talking about dirtiness associated with the word lesbian, and I was wondering what helped you to dissociate the word dirtiness from lesbian people. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Lika is the next.
Hi, I'm wondering, I'm also a counselor, so I'm wondering if you guys had any interventions for people that were at the Pride in 2001 or 2010. So if you guys had any psychological work that you did with them. And were the same people around for all 3 prides, or is there a new way of coming in every time? Just relying on my personal experience, I was also part of the second pride kind of thing here. So I'm wondering if it should be the same people going over and over again before portraying, or what happened, or was it like a new way of untraumatized people?
I think this will be it for this time. I really feel sorry for the people who are watching our live stream because some of them might not know English that well. I'm for switching to Georgian, but if you guys prefer English, that's okay with us, I think.
It's better for direct communication.
Okay, thank you. So, Lepa.
Wow. Lots of questions. Well, let's first go about transformation that you used it in social acceptance and the role of the lesbian and gay and feminist movement. You know, as an activist, I am passionate activist. I see lots of you here passionate. I'm very much linked to you here. So I of course believe in what I do, and I believe that activism was one of the crucial elements why there are changes, because it's we have come up with and we as a movement is like a radical movement. When we first said we are lesbians, there was nothing. And nobody else could have said that except me. as a radical feminist, when we first said there is violence against women, there was no mention around it, nobody knew what it was, you know. So it's the role of the activist is like crucial. There will be nothing without activists, because who will be the one who name what is supposed to be done if it's not us? So in that sense, our role is really decisive, and it's not enough, but it is really decisive. That's how I believe. And in this time, in like 25 years, let's say, of gay and lesbian activism, we have only in the last, let's say, 10 years, have come to see that there is some changes. So it took some time, but to refer to your question, I also think it's a very short time. You know, there are 3,000 years of defeat of the gay and lesbians. We were not supposed to be alive. You know, we were not meant to exist as women who love women or men who love men for so many thousand years. And practically only in the last 20 years we have come so that 15 years in the world have a marriage like this, identical marriage like intersections. I think it's much faster than how much women's human rights have advanced. So I think that gay and lesbian rights are generally advancing much faster than women's rights, and then in your country it will be faster. Then you will resolve early marriages. What's early marriage? It's the early rape. It's a child's rape. It's girls' child's rape. It just has a nice title, early marriage. It's a culturally and state allowed that girls will be sexually abused without their will on the age of 14, 13, and 15, etc., etc. You know, so there are violence in my country. A woman is killed once a week because she is a wife or ex-wife or girlfriend as a part of male violence against women. We call it femicide. So I'm talking about a really huge issue which is not changing as fast as gay and lesbian rights. That's my observation. I'm responsible for this observation. So I think it's really fast changing for gays and lesbians. And I think that, the gay and lesbian groups, we are working on two main aims. One aim is to empower ourselves, to know who we are, to have group works, to go together, cinema, to talk, to have discussion, to have workshops when we talk about our experience. So I have done numerous workshops on experience, and not only me, but the whole group, so that we can really reach the level of even feeling as a citizen of the place where we live in, because we feel so inferior and so guilty and so full of shame or dirt or whatever. Each one has her own story. Before we can even think that we can cross the street and feel proud as a citizen, equal like anybody else. So we need to work on our own feelings. And then, so the gay and lesbian groups work on that, and also work on the state, on the laws, and we have this anti-discrimination law, we have hate speech law, we have there was one mayor or one town, he's like a prototype of the sexist guy, one of those who eats meat all the time, and he's like a good host, everybody likes to come to his town, he's like a good host, but he hates gays and lesbians. So he, out of blue, said something very negative about it recently, and they said, sorry, we have a hate speech. You cannot say that. He didn't even, think what he saw or what he said. But now he has to think next time, So this is what I'm saying. So things are changing, and that's about after this 2001, the massacre parade. What was the outcome? The whole country knew what happened, in the sense that if there was anybody who thought that gays and lesbians are in America, how they Not here. Proper Serbs don't have lesbians. We say here everywhere. Proper ones. Because we contaminate the sacred country. The sacred, I was attacked, I didn't even talk about this, I was attacked. We were 4 of us. We were making lesbian graffiti in 95, and we were attacked by the activists from the church activists. And he took us to me like this, and he said, "I will kill you." And he said, and I said, "Who are you?" And then he said, "You stop these dirty words. With your words, you are dirtying my streets." That's what he said, because I'm lesbian. He said that, he said it just like clearly, you're dirtying my streets. So that must change. It's going slower, of course. It's very good. It's going slow, it's going fast. It depends how you look at it. From the civilization point, it's very fast. But from one lifetime, we want everything now because we have only one lifetime, and we want to be happy now, and for all of us to be happy now. So, and then about social acceptance, I think it's very important because one is because of these nationalists, especially nationalist government, the social acceptance goes slower than we thought, because when the Democrats came in 2002 or 2003, it was getting better, and there were lots of people on institution position who were open-minded, and then now they're all gone. They couldn't stand it. I mean, the government is full of stupid people. I had to say that. So the government is full of stupid people on very important places, because these 3 nationalist parties, they didn't have clever people, because clever people don't want to be in extreme nationalist parties, intellectuals, you see. So it's really, I'm ashamed of the state in which I live, deeply ashamed. And so the social acceptance is now, we can say that the latest, I would say, researchers say that 60% of people are really sort of not really happy with gays and lesbians. It's less than before, but in towns it's less, so it's still a lot to do. And I want to say something about intersex. We have a gay. I mean, for people who maybe don't use this, intersex is a very biological term, and there is a social construction term. So lots of people don't want to identify with intersex because it's just a biological fact. But we have a guy who is intersex out. So he can talk about it. He is also running a trans group. So trans is a group that he's running. He's responsible for trans. So there is a whole trans activities now already some time in that way. So let's see about what happens. What can we do now? I will say it at the end. And what was this Pro 2001 and 2010? What was the question?
Oh, let me remind you of those questions. So the question was about this year, this year demonstration, did it happen?
Yeah.
And the second question was about the ministers who came out at that demonstration.
It is.
Do they belong to that ultra-nationalist?
It is strange because Europe is pressing the ultra-nationalists. So what happened was, one of the minister women, she's not in that party, and the mayor is in that party. He's a rather young man, 35. So he's in that same nationalist party, but he was there, and I know one of my friends said, "Oh, imagine if this horrible prime minister, if he comes himself, because he's in that same party, and we hate him. What are you going to do? Are we going to go out from our own big pride? What's going on?" It's a mess, and it needs lots of discussions. But I will show you now, because that's a question, just few images. So this is from Pride 2010 that you have seen it, and then what did we do? We do alternative things, and just to say, our Pride is in September, and 17 is not our Pride Day. We never had it because really, I don't know, just like that. Our Pride Parade is in September for some reason. And for the 27th of June and for the 17th of May, we do some alternative things. So, for example, we made a Pride picnic in 2011 when the state banned it. You know, we waited until the last moment and they said no. Then one lesbian, she made a SMS and she said, let's all meet in the student park. You know, it's in the center of town near university, student park, and we made Pride picnic. And that's one of the some of the lesbians from the Pride. Then in 2012, we saw, you know, you have to be very creative because we can, if we say Pride Parade, they come. But for the 27th of June 2012, they said, oh, it's some, they had to, you have to announce to police some activity, so they said it in a different way. I don't know what they said. So there was no one, maybe because it was not Pride Parade and it was not a big deal, you know, and we was new. So we were so happy, you know, this gay guy, a friend of mine, this blue. He would, at that moment, he would say, look at this, you know, it's like a parade, and everybody's beating us up, you know, in that very moment of this photo. And this is me, and, you know, this is some gay activists, and all these gay activists. And then, on 2013, they banned again, and then we made a midnight pride. So also in SMS. And it says, this is Pride, because they banned the Pride, they banned again in the last moment, the day before, and then we were like, oh, you know, what are we going to do now? So then the organizers, they had few policemen also, you know, you always have to have police friends. These organizers, they have police friends, so there were a few policemen, just in case. And so we all waited until midnight and we went through the main street. This is also Main Street, you know. And it says, this is Pride. This is Pride now. So that's 2013. So that's 2014. And now what did we learn? But, and then I will show you the 2015. I think I already said that we, you know, that the government has to collaborate with we have to work with the government. You know what's really knowledge? That we are not important, you know. But we are important, we are not important. They are also dealing some of their stuff behind using us with yes or no. You know, it's very important to know this once we start dealing with them, you know, that we are one part of the whole story.
Can you remind you Tamar's questions about?
Yes, about today. I will come just now. Ruling nationalist parties control. I already said that. Syrian session. Yeah. Okay, and this is what it is. What happens today? Activities, lesbian screening, queer baking, great parents, gay with disabilities, trans workshops, drama lesbian coming, 8th of March. And now I'm going to show you what happens in these last 6 months. That was the question. Because the Pride Parade is going to be in September, we'll tell you. But it's the same national government. And this is just, I had 3 more questions, 4 more photos. So we make, it's very important for us that Roma lesbians are out. So these are the 3. These are the 3 Roma lesbians. And we have in the feminist festival, then 3. Then we have 8th of March. I don't know if you have something for 8th of March. There are lots of lesbians at 8th of March. This one was proud work and not anger. And this, we had a lesbian march in April, just a month ago. This is from the lesbian march. It was the lesbians only. No. And we had Pride picnic on 17th of May. That's the photo. When you were in the rain, I saw the photos from you. We were there. And now we have a few more photos because I want you to tell me about the 17th of May. How did you feel? I think this is incredible photographs because these 2 young women are holding hands. These are the same hands, look. They're holding hands. It's the same couple. And you can see this difference between this energy of the patriarchs and the new world coming, which these two women are holding in their bodies and their clothes. One has flowers and the other one has heart. So we are holding the values of the new world and love and solidarity, and there, you know, this huge distinction. It's thank you, Annie, for the photographs.
It's just
2012 is my
Oh, okay, sorry. 2012, yeah. Sorry, I will change it. And now we have, wow, we have activists. Some of them here. And I think this activity is really fantastic that you made on the streets. So I wish you would tell me something about your activities and how do you feel now, especially those who were or were not, because everybody was affected.
Oh, there are no grammar changes. I remember she corrected that.
I don't know.
That's all right.
I think you didn't say it. This is a Google Translate, I'm sorry.
I think it feels much better because it's more honest than that one that was changed.
Same. Yeah.
All right, so another session for questions then? Lika is the first.
Could I have my questions answered?
Yeah, you remind me.
Oh, well, let me remind you those questions because I felt kind of awkward to remind you that again. But let me remind you Tamar's questions first. Tamar was asking about social transformation and your role in that transformation and the means for social changes. And also, she had a question about that word dirtiness and how did you disconnect that word from the word lesbian? And Lika's question, I think you remember better than me. So.
Yeah, just
Yeah, I know that one. Sorry, I made them all, but then okay. So first of all, about means, I support every mean that some group thinks it's working. I think it's really open space, social space, open space for everybody to do whatever they think. Because, for example, you know, there's lots of creativity in what we can do. You know, like, you know, you can come up to the idea to have, you know, photographs, or to have a picnic, or to have, you know, anything. I think there are lots of fantastic examples all around the world. I remember once in South Africa, they were all in the bus, and they put the bus, because also they are afraid, so they made a bus of a huge rainbow, a rainbow flag, and they were going from town to town, and they stop somewhere, and then they, you know, in South Africa everything is outside, so then they get out of the bus, and then they have some friends there, they make some happening, they also dance, and you know, you can invent something in Georgia, whatever, you know, it's fine, you know, but I think the means are really open for all, and one is activist means, and also depends what do we do. Are we, you know, do we want to change people's mind, or we want to change the state, or we want to change ourselves? But every mean is really important. I like to make workshops where we talk about emotions, because I think we cannot really be ready for the freedom in the state, in the country, in the state, unless we change ourselves emotionally to be who we are emotionally, because we are so, as women and as lesbian, because we have double lesbophobia. As women and as lesbian, we are double discriminated, and it's all in our emotions, it's all in our bodies already before we even think about it. And so social transformation, I think you can tell me also what do you mean by that, and how you, because I've already said, but I think it's also important that I learn from you how do you envision in Georgia. And about were the people the same ones? You know, because we who were in 2001 massacre, right, we were really so traumatized. First of all, but because I am very much occasionally about emotions, we organized that a group goes to about 10 of them who were most emotionally affected to a group in Croatia where they were 5 days together, and they had a psychotherapist who was a lesbian, and it was really great. We had to ask for the money for this project because it was very important. You're totally right, and I was very concerned. So, because for example, one of them did not go, this is the main place of the town, you know, where this happened. So she didn't go through that place for the next 6 years. She didn't cross this, you know, like if she wouldn't go to the Pushkin Square the next 6 years, she did not cross it. So it's very important that we know these stories and to see how to deal with it, because your 17 or 9 was highly traumatized. Everybody, even people who were not there, sorry, it's enough to see on the TV and you are identified. You didn't have to be there, you know, just watching. So it's very important question that we take care of our emotions and outcomes.
So did you have new people who are interested?
Yes, we have totally new people. I must say we have totally new people. In fact, there are much less us who were in 2001 than new people. We have new young activists, also all these, you know, face and internet. It's really incredible how many new activists there are. So we have new activists, and also we are, how about Armenia and solidarity? I think it's very important because for us one important issue is that we are solidar with the states of former Yugoslavia. So we are very, whenever we have money, we pay them to come or invite them to come, but they don't even have money to come. So we have to find ways for them to come for every of our events.
First of all, thank you so much for this research you've done about Georgia. It's really incredible.
Yeah.
I didn't see that coming, and thank you for the Georgian letters. It's really impressive. Before
There is somebody else has something.
yeah, sure. We will get more questions and comments, I guess, but I have a question for you first. When you talk about May 17th events in Georgia, it's just International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia in Georgia. It's not a pride parade. I don't think that we are doing that, or we are brave enough to do that. This year,
historical moment.
yeah. So when we are talking about the demonstration, it's really something different. And this year, we didn't even bring rainbow flags to those demonstrations because some activists were really scared to show up with those flags because they know what was coming. But what I'm trying to say is that we are at the very early stage here. I remember in your really brilliant article, you were talking about Arcadia, how they were kicked out from the meeting space from one of the human rights organizations in Yugoslavia at the time? Or
No, Serbia.
Serbia. So it's really incredible. Sometimes LGBT organizations here in Georgia are under the shadows of these big human rights organizations, and sometimes the relationship is kind of weird. I don't ever know the word. I don't know how to describe that. But can you tell us more about that experience? How do you communicate with the general human rights organizations? Where do you think we are now?
I don't know what you're saying, because in other countries, in some other countries it's similar, because lesbians who are engaged in lesbian and gay lesbian organizations as out lesbians are usually not those who are also doing some other work or like whatever, you know. So you have, in many countries, you have lesbians who are in human rights organizations where they are not out. and they're afraid that this will, make smaller, that it will make shadow, as I say, to their human rights opposition. And it's reasonable. For some reasons, in our place, there were few of us who were feminists from the beginning out. And I was really more in violence against women than I'm in lesbian movement because I'm activist, but there is now Labris has a whole team of already 15 years who's working there. I'm really just an activist that goes out in the street, but I'm not working in a lesbian organization. And I was never even working because I was always in the Autonomous Women's Center as a feminist who was really starting a violence against women movement. But because violence against women movement we have made a lot of feminists who were working on this issue, we had a deal. I said, okay, I will be the spokesperson for lesbian rights less than violence against women, because then you have also to measure when you're out, what are you talking about, because it was also difficult. But there were feminist lesbians in the different other associations who were out lesbians, and that helps a lot. That helps a lot. Because otherwise we really have two separate issues, it's difficult to reach. And also because those who have more power have to reach those who have less power. So that means the human rights organizations should reach lesbian and gay organizations themselves. Usually we go, but they have more power in some way. So they should. But we should reach those who have less power. That means we should reach Roma women who love women, Azerbaijani women who love women, Abkhazi women who love women, women with disabilities, gay with disabilities. That's our task. We have to be proactive to reach them, to come to us and let's go for a coffee and hi, how are you and what's your life? Again, we don't know how they live and they're in our town. We don't have to go to Serbia to see how there are different people in your own town. There are many different life stories in your own town that we don't know. And I think that's very important for us to understand. At least for me it was. It's really opening my life because I have once, understood that this is my role and that's my responsibility as a feminist to share my power over white girl from a capital, finish university. I have power, even though I'm women and lesbian, but on the other side, I have lots of power to share with the others, and that's really what feminism is for me, how to share this power, because we want to end all kinds of discrimination. That's my aim as feminists, and all kinds of discrimination on all kinds in all societies and mine and here too.
That was a really, really important point for us, because what is happening in Georgia is that LGBT groups are begging for support from these bigger human rights organizations, and it's not like you said that human rights organizations should go there. Yeah, that was really, really important point. And I see. If anyone wants to answer the questions that were raised by
17th of May, if you want to tell us something, tell me something.
Yeah, before Etuna starts, what I wanted to say about May 17th is that this year we didn't really have violence, thank God, and the reason was the same as you had on 2014. That somehow probably that violence is always government sponsored, and they reached the agreement with the Georgian Orthodox Church this year, and they just didn't come out. And even though they declared that day as a Holy Family Day, they just called off all the activities they had planned ahead. So that's a really, really interesting point, and that's a really horrible thing we have in common, Serbia and Georgia.
Yeah, but it's good to know. Yeah, it's good to know. So we have knowledge as a power,
Absolutely. Thank you. So, Etuna, do you have a microphone?
No.
Well, thank you, Lepa. And my first question would be if you can share with us your radical feminist activity in Serbia or some meant something about how you deal with charge, for example. And my second question is about just if there have been some tensions between LGBT groups itself, because sometimes human rights activities, yes, sometimes human rights activities is so stressful that it becomes public and it looks very from outside. And if there have been these kind of tensions, then how you deal with it?
Okay, good. Maybe somebody else. Oh, okay, I can answer this one. I was talking, I like to talk sometimes about our guerrilla activities because I'm a radical feminist, so from time to time there are new activists who then think about guerrilla means something strict activism, so it's either like writing graffiti in the night, so that nobody sees you, and then you have like 3 of them who are making the color, and then one is writing, and 3 of them are standing aside in case nobody sees, so this night activism, and then now of course everything is then click, everything.
Clicktivism, that's what they call it.
Clicktivism, yes. So there is lots of this, not lots, but from time to time, let's put it this way, there's this street activism, which I think is very important because it also gives hope to it. I remember, when I sometimes go and then I see Anna loves Maria, and there was a lesbian here passing. I feel there is like hopefulness, and I don't even know who wrote it because sometimes I think I know all the lesbians in my town, but it's not true. So there is this. It's good to have this activism, and there was one story that I like to some of our activism against church, because I'm very much against the institution of church, of any kind of religion, no matter which one, because nothing has been done good for women or lesbians in the history of any institution or any religion. It has to be really clear. It's only now that some activism in some countries are opening for lesbians and gays and women, but really in our region, nothing good has been done. So there was, it was the last year that appeared a really very nice, appealing poster against abortion. It was a beautiful woman looking like this. She was really elegant and very, you see a photo, really very beautiful. And you don't know what it is about. But really, it has to be something like that she is letting her child, embryo fly away, but she's killing the life. That was the point. It took us some time to realize what it means. So we saw it near me. There is this church, one of the churches, and it's the wall of the yard, and it's really very tightly put. It's like put on some wood, and then poster, and then glass, and then stick. So we had to go with screwdrivers to unscrew the whole thing, to take the whole thing, and then to throw it not even in the first garbage, but in the second one, in case they could find it and put it back again. But then we found it, they put it again, I did it at least 3 times myself. Next time I did it on my own, it was easy, but you just go in the night, midnight. Like sometimes we say you go home and you want to do something before you go to sleep, you have to do some political activities, so that I really became expert, how to do this, and then it's really difficult, and then you break it down and go in parts, so I say, okay, now I go home, and or we have to get out of this. We have some of our political representatives are war criminals. War criminals. They have been on international war criminal courts, and then their faces are there. So then I have to take at least like 5 of these posters, so to feel a little bit better, and things like that. We do that often. So thanks. So this is about guerrilla. So you a little bit about guerrilla. Is that what it is? All the questions.
Tensions.
And the tensions between the groups.
Notes. want the latest one?
How do you handle them?
Latest one was a week ago. Yeah, I mean, there are no stop. Latest one was a week ago. It was, there is one main, some of these gay and lesbian organizations are mainstreaming. They're only concerned about the state. And now that the state has changed, as I said, in ultra-nationalist, we don't know what to do, So how are you dealing with them? At least before it was so-so. So they were giving, there's this one organization who once a year, among other things, they give a prize for the LGBT activity.
In the government.
Well, the point is that they have made the rules that anyone can be on that list. So the government, the institutions, the NGOs, the private activists, the groups, everybody. So it's really not a good list. I disagree with such kind. So it's either you give to government or you give to activists. So what happened this year, that there was one activist who was a trans activist who made a big deal because he was trans and he was even in the army and he came out and finally he won something that he wanted to get a pension. Anyway, it was very courageous from the trans activist. And it was, among others, one minister, women minister, who is from those nationalist parties, who is mild, but she's in that party. So there is a group, the commission, who was giving, they wanted to give to the trans, and afterward it came out that the organization was pressing them to give to the minister. So it all came out as a really bad story because they gave the prize to the woman minister. And so we were all divided now. Why didn't the trans get, and how, one person against the minister is like really not fair. And how can you do this? And, how can you give a prize to the minister? So the whole community is divided. We are angry and then we are talking. So also, there's another one, a month earlier was a lesbian march, because the lesbians, the young lesbians who organized it, they didn't want anybody else but lesbians on march. They are trans, they are gender this, they are gender that, what's lesbian, you don't know what's lesbian, who's a woman, you don't know who's a man anymore. So it was endless. I think they did it, they not knowing how problematic it will become. It's still a discussion. We don't know if it did better or worse, but it opened up lots of discussions. So there are non-stop discussions.
Do you think it's strengthening the cause because there's competition, or do you think it's weakening because there's few organizations as they are, and then they're fighting against each other, and from the outside it looks like there's no cohesion?
I believe in talking. Never stop talking. Never stop talking. I think it's so important in all different kinds of levels that we talk. Among 2 or 3, among more. And I just talked yesterday with somebody, I remember a year ago when we first talked about pride, what should we do before this one. We entered at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I came home at 9. We were 7 hours discussing because it was so important, because in discussing this, everybody had something to say, and the facilitator was really very open to that, because then you have, what's your relation to state, what's your relation to other groups, lots of things came up, I don't know, everything, just about everything, And it was really good to have this space, even though some people were against the other, and they were also, it's very sensitive. I think we don't know how to discuss in the non-violent way. That's would be mine. I know it's also there. I'm always trying to say everybody has rights to what they think. It's just important how we say. We are not supposed to accuse the other, but we are saying what we think without accusing the other, but we are saying what we think. This is our position. It's very important to learn how we discuss, But it's good to discuss. And how about you? Tell me. How about 17th of March this year? How did you feel? Oh, tell us something.
So since you're holding the microphone, you are obliged to say something about May 17th.
think that I would have courage to go there anyway if I were here, despite that we had this promise from the government to protect the activists. And only 2 years after, this year, it came to my mind why it happened what happened in 2013. The government, with the clear purpose, they just let all these people to be the activists. Why? Because people, they were elected for a year already, and the population had aggression towards the government. So I think that they just let all these people to somewhere to spend their aggression, and these gay activists were a good target for them. That's what happened.
They are responsible, I agree with you.
Of course, the state, the government is responsible for whatever happened in 2013. Because this year when they realized that they, not realized, we saw that it's possible to protect these 20 or 30 people that are out in the street without any violence or something. Whenever they will to do this, they will do this. That's my opinion.
I think that's what I was trying to show.
Yeah, this is what we saw from 2010 from Serbia, when the political party, nationalist political party, used these people against the party that was in power.
But we did not know that at that time, that's why
I just realized that after 2 years, I was always thinking why it happened what happened, you know. Yeah, because it was their will. They needed it to happen, and that's why it happened.
Exactly. But it takes time to understand that it's going to be knowing more and more.
Yeah, I was there, both 2012 and 2013. And I think not only that, but church helped government come into power. So I think government did not have enough political standpoint to oppose the church. Well, maybe now they're a little bit more stronger. I don't know, because I was really surprised that the church thing didn't take place. I was 100% sure it would, and I'm still surprised. And I think that I went to that thing because I was naive, and I didn't expect what would happen. And I'm kind of like too scared now. I don't know, like maybe after several years that it's peace, maybe then, or if I have like somebody protecting me or something like that. But this year I kind of saying for all activities.
But thank you for saying that. It's very important because we want to, we need to respect our emotions. First of all, we have to take seriously our own emotions. That it's good that we can say this out loud. Like, it took me some time to say yes, I'm afraid, and to say that because we were all, courageous activists, butches and this, and we cannot never say we are afraid, So it took me some time to learn what you just said, thank you, because that's also good to others to hear. Some women or men, some activists maybe don't feel fear, that's fine. Whatever it is, it's okay, And we need to be in contact with ourselves and say thanks. That's really important.
I want to add something.
As a counselor, I also have undergone a lot of therapy myself in order to help other people. So I'm kind of like, I've been through, I think it's behind me now, but that's because I was lucky to have therapy. And I'm just thinking about everybody else who never got to that point. And I think more than fear, for me it was aggression. Because right after 17th of May, I was feeling really angry for a while, and therapy helped me with, because I was kind of like, every time I saw some church member, I wanted to, scream at them, and I was really very upset about my behavior. I still, when I see a church member, they're still on my radar. Like, I can't comprehend them as human beings, like people just walking in the street. There's still some that are like, but at least I don't want to, eat them anymore, which is probably good. But I took my icons down from my home, and I guess that was a big move for me because I'm from a Christian school and blah blah blah. So that event was the last straw that connected me to church in England.
Applause for her.
decide to make such a big protection for the action that was held in front of the UN housing policy, and there were 3 different actions, and 2 of them were really protected by police with double cordon and a lot of policemen around. The same question goes to Serbia as well, that they decided to protect you in last year, right? What has changed and why did they decide to protect activism all these rights? I don't have patience for that. Maybe you can have some.
Let's first talk about Europe, because I want to hear more about how other people think about 1709. It's very traumatic. And thank you for saying it's a very traumatic experience for everybody who is connected in any way. Yeah, it's okay.
Well, I was not here in Georgia in 2013. Does it work at all?
Yeah.
But this time, so as Nina already mentioned, there were 3 demonstrations. One was near the UN office. Another one was on Mladjenovic Street, which is the street where activists were attacked in 2013 on the 17th of May. And the third one was near the Ministry of Justice, if I'm not mistaken. Well, I was on Mladjenovic Street, and I had no idea what to expect, because I was involved in the process of organizing this demonstration, and it took us a lot of time to organize a demonstration that would just go on for only like 15 minutes, no more. We had to take like lots of safety measures. It was not announced. Even community members were not involved in the organizing process of the demonstration. And well, it's kind of difficult to talk about it. Yeah, because it was only like 15 of us, but the street choosing the destination was very, it had a very symbolic meaning because of the accident that took place in 2013. And we just decided that we had to be there. We had to be there for all of those people who got attacked 2 years ago, and for all of those people who cannot come out in the street this year, who could not. Well, it went okay. It went well, yeah. If like being surrounded by police officers and the cars and no one else almost, if it is called, well, yeah, and it was okay. But for me, it was a bit of frustration, it was a bit of dissatisfaction that like, there were no people like watching us. They were like, yeah. But also on another hand, it was nice to see that streets were more or less kind of cleared from these crowds, and 3 like separate demonstrations took part. I don't know. And also the pictures that you used in your presentation from the campaign The Street is Taken. It was also the initiative of PISC. It was quite surprising for me because there are lots of community members who took part in this campaign. And there actually are people who do not know that there are like lots of community members in those pictures. People who actually took some risks and took these photos, which are public. Because yeah, I noticed a comment from someone several days ago mentioning that, like let's say that there are these activists and feminists who are going out in the streets in the name of lesbians and gays. But it was very kind of painful for me because I know all of those community members who took those risks to come out, not in the name of someone else, but in the name of like themselves, including me. So yeah, and I think that it's well, as a community officer, like these people, I did not expect that there would be so much involvement in this campaign, and it was really amazing to see that there actually was. Yeah, because you never know, like if there is no, if they are already kind of ready to go out or not. If you do not kind of start doing something yourself and then ask them to join.
I think we should make big applause for the
Yeah.
But it's absolutely identical. Thank you. It's all, you know, you are in a vacuum, you are in a social, you can't, this is a phase we have to go through, I guess, to think that there will be a different phase later in our life or not. Because it's social, it's like 2010. 4,000 policemen were around us, we were in the park and then in the street. They had to ask every person who lived in that street to show the ID. There was nobody, as you said. We were in a social vacuum. We were walking, it looked very nice that we were walking the street, but there was nobody else. We were all ourselves. So what is it about? What are we doing, you know? There is a huge discussion. Sometimes I say, I don't want to go anymore, and then we still go. Because you know, we have to always be with police. We are non-stop with police. We have to be with police non-stop. Now, from 2001, every single of these big activities on the street, LGBT, it's always with police. You know? And this picnic on the 17th, you know, it was, the police was around, I just didn't take a photo, but not as much, but still, they were all around the park. So I really think you have done excellent. Look, 15 women, 15 minutes. Bravo. Because we have to measure how much we are strong and what can we do. And we need to have alliances with other organizations. That's crucial. Because you know, some of us feminists, anti-war activists, and you know, we have really, and some radical feminists, we are really very much about solidarity. So, for example, for the Lesbian March, which was also a month ago, lots of heterosexual women who are feminists, they're okay because they're politically lesbians. You know, they politically can say, I'm Palestinian, I'm lesbian, and they come. You know, they have no problem. You know, so sorry, that's what we need to do. So we need alliance.
A very short comment.
Yeah, please.
Sure. It's just that maybe I don't need it.
You need it
For the life. In short, the kind of situation for us in Georgia is that there are lots of women's organizations, feminist organizations, but on their agendas, LGBT women's issues are not included. And that's it.
What shall we do about that? I have to go with this. We can talk about violence against women.
We should teach them to approach them. That's the way, as you said.
We have to do some detour, you know. We have to make some, violence against women conference, and then I come and then, after 3 sentences, go and talk about violence against women.
Even though you asked us to talk about May 17th, let me ask you one more question, because I am really scared when people talk about their fears, and I'm really scared of these fears we have in this society. So let me ask that, and I do agree with Anna, and it's really great meeting you, Anna, today, because I think we met for the first time, and I really appreciate all your efforts, and it was really amazing to listen to you. But I understand that celebrating all these small victories we have.
Yes.
And we should take that slow and we should do everything step by step. But just be honest and tell us, how did you overcome all these fears you had? And you had, because you were attacked several times, and you had all the challenges we have here in Georgia. How did you do that?
Well, first we don't overcome. I mean, we don't have to you know. It's really, maybe the question is how do we live with fears, you know? How do we live with fears? First one is that for me, the first thing is that I had to say, yes, I have fears. Because for years I was like really activist, you know, front line, and I didn't have any fears. So, in fact, in 2001, I got only then, it took me years, you know, to accept totally that I have fears and to be able to talk about it without feeling ashamed. So first is that we recognize that we have fears, and fear, emotion is in our body, to be in contact with our body, to accept, to recognize, to accept that we have fear, to live with it, and to breathe with our fears, you know, because our fear is ourselves, and therefore it's good, because it's ourselves, and we are good. Because our emotions come because they want to save us in different kinds of situations. They give us some information. So every emotion is in our body, and it's good. Therefore, even though it brings us lots of problems, but that's why we learn what we need to do with emotions, and one of the things we need to learn, and I'm learning still, is how to accept every emotion I have, which is also troubling me, like fear. So breathe and say, oh, this is my fear, yeah, this is my fear, yeah, that's my emotion, that's me. And also to support others. I remember one of the Great Pride in Split in Croatia, it was all of a sudden, after they returned, 2,000 nationalists were screaming, you must die. And I was like, and I started feeling, so after that, you know, a little bit afterwards, we were sort of, you know, sort of protected for them. They didn't attack us, and then there were some girls were under the stage, you know, sitting under the stage because there was so much fear. So I went from one to another and say, yes, you want to go through it, it's okay to feel fear. And one was crying, one was standing like this, and there was lots of fear, of course. And then it's good to support each one of us that, yes, it's okay, whatever, because each one has a different reaction. One said, I'm gonna kill them, you know, and there were 2,000, I didn't know when. So yes, and one of them freezes, one of them cries, one of them, you know, we all have different reactions, and each one is okay. It's good for us. So this is what we have to learn, really. I think it's very important that we take emotional literacy seriously, that we learn that this is all political issue. Because, you know, sometimes they tell us, oh, these emotions, there's bourgeois, you know, or that's not political, you know, but we have started feminists with a very profound political idea that private is political, that personal is political. Personal is political. My fear is not my personal issue, sorry. It came because of homophobic and lesbian society, that it hates women, misogynic society hates women, it hates lesbians and gays. If I kiss a woman, it's revolution. Yes. That's it. That's an old slogan. Woman kissing woman is a revolution. Everyone's still.
So more questions or comments? Anna?
I'd just like to, again, 2 questions, not related to each other. That's a very disrelated. And, I forget. Now, I'd like to refer to the earlier comment made about how the general women's rights and human rights organizations do not have the LGBT agenda. And again, I'd like to refer to the project that we're running now and I'm very hopeful in this regard because we have an activity in the project which deals with capacity building for or CSOs and organizations that are generally working on civil society organizations. Sorry.
And you.
Okay. Yeah, so basically capacity building for organizations that work specific only on women's rights or human rights and women's rights to raise their capacity and to include the LGBT issues on their agenda. And we are hopeful that that will somehow increase LGBT awareness and working on these issues among these organizations that are general human rights and women's rights. So that's a good positive.
One of the things, for example, what we have is the question of means. We had something like a live library. It's called, I think we started somewhere else. Live library means that some of us come and talk about our lives. You know, we can always find them.
In Georgia, there's a similar.
How you call it? Tell me.
The human library? How is that?
Yeah, why don't you tell us? Tell us.
Sorry, I didn't participate.
Doesn't matter, just tell us.
But what I know, there was a possibility for other people to go and talk to the activists, lesbian activists, gay activists, women's rights activists.
Where do they go?
It was called a library. I think it was a national library where people, it was announced. So I think it was like a year or two.
It's also means that you can use when you go to different. For example, we use it anywhere. You know, like when you go to psychologists, when you go to social workers, and you have trainings. Well, we do already these trainings. Maybe you didn't come, but you will be doing it. You know, lesbians and gay. We have to train everybody. They don't know that before we come and tell them who we are. They still think we look like penguins, you know, even though we are mountain, you know. So one of the part of the training is that, you know, some of us, because that's really not, you don't have to be out to the TV, to be out among 10 social workers. That's fine. You don't even have to say your name. And then you talk about your own life. That's really important. That's the most important thing. That's the only thing they remember, to tell the truth. We even did, a Lebanese organization, lesbian organization, did one of the training in the women's prison. You know, they did it because we have a woman, a new woman director of this big women's prison. So she was fine. She said, "Oh yes, come." And so they made a whole day training. You know, I mean, discussing who are lesbians, what they do, how they look like, but also a few of them said their life stories. And then the library means you can ask me any question. Of course, I don't have to answer if some question is, but usually the questions are really okay. So that's really important. You know, they have to meet us to see that we are people like everybody else, but also different. You know, we go to the same shops, but we are not the same. I mean, my world is not the same like her world if she's heterosexual, because, you know, what's a French kiss and what's a kiss and what's making love, it's all different. But, you know, some things the same, but some, you know, the world I see in a different way, and maybe maybe it's good for her to know how I see this world differently than she does, you know. And I know her world because I come from a heterosexual world, and we all come from heterosexual worlds, because all the literature is heterosexual, all the history of civilization is heterosexual. So it's important that we tell our stories, you know, so that they can see that this is not only about making love, that this is a different existence. You know, lesbian existence and gay existence and trans existence and Roma existence. It's a different position of where are we in this world, and how this world comes into us, and how do we see it, and how do we live it, and how do we interpret different interpretations of it.
And this is what precisely was the point of this human library that was held in Georgia, was that there was a bunch of people with like certain characteristics. There was a lesbian, feminist, there was a disabled individual with physical disability. My husband was a part of it because he's a black guy, and he was a black guy. And so, you know, people could come and ask questions, to disperse certain stereotypes and
They don't know anything about that.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, do you like basketball? Because you're going to work. Yeah, good. Okay. And then just one more question about, I heard from, as a woman in black, I want to ask you about that. Do you have any connection with, because the current movement is still present, right? And as a co-founder, and when I read that bit about in your biography, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And do you have any connection still with the women in black? And do you participate in any of the there?
I can tell you about
Yeah.
but it's the end. But okay, just shortly, Women in Black is international center, and now it's also important for me to say that now, because the war is over in Serbia, what we do is we go around in the places where Serbian soldiers have done crimes, and we say, we are sorry for the crimes that are done in our names. It's very important because it's a new model. Nobody is taking this concept of responsibility, collective responsibility, to say, I'm ashamed, because I am ashamed. And it also makes a dialogue possible between me and women, or women and men in Bosnia and Herzegovina, in Kosovo. 10,000 Albanians killed in Kosovo, it's in small Kosovo, So why would they talk to me unless I know what happens? And I want to know what happens. And I want to know what are the crimes done in my name, and I need to know, and I want to tell them, yes, I know, and yes, I'm ashamed, and yes, I'm sorry. So I think it's important what Women like us. And also, I also want to tell you there is 100 years of women's peace movement in this world. And there was a big conference a month ago to celebrate 100 years of women's peace conference, and the first organization is called Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, and they had a big conference and on many different issues, and I have posted a mini panel, I call it a mini panel, on lesbians in the peace movement, so to stop this silence about lesbian peace movement. So it was really important. So thanks.
Thank you very much.
Okay, well, as I said at the
I want to
beginning,
thank you.
No,
You're so passionate. She's so passionate and so fantastic. You have to take her every time.
yeah, that's what you do.
And she likes ice cream.
So, as I said at the beginning, I learned so much yesterday, and I can say now that I learned so much today. As one of your friends was talking about that, talking about you, and saying that everything she's saying is my life mantra or something like that. And today I really have one mantra that we should leave your fears. That was a really, really great lesson for me to learn.
To live our fears.
To live with our fears. It was a really, really important thing for me to hear from you. I don't know how can I summarize everything that was said. I'm not planning to do that, of course. But I think I wish we had that courage to do whatever you
You
did.
have the courage you have.
Yeah.
Please.
I think we do have courage.
You did the best you could in given circumstances.
Thank you.
You did the best you could in given circumstances. There is no comparison, I'm sorry. We can say, in San Francisco they did something else and then we didn't do it in London. No, please. You did the best. You did the best.
And Anna was asking about women in black, and I would recall one fact from that moment. Back in the 90s, these women were saying, one of the posters they had during the demonstrations was saying, disobedient to our fathers, political leaders, and God.
Yes.
You know what we mean by God. Whatever they are committing in the name of God, of course. And I wish we did the same, and we said that thing now in 2015. Thank you so much for this wonderful speech and this really interesting discussion. And please join me in applauding this wonderful and the happiest lesbian of this Thank you. So we will meet for a cup of tea.